for agents in general. I think what people talk a lot about is just, in the coming months with the market shift and how EXP can actually, how we're actually positioned in a way to actually help agents survive this,
Yeah.
how we're helping our agents survive this. And then maybe you can kind of go into the history, how we were actually birthed out of a recession in 2009.
Yeah. So what we're having is like a lot of brokers and team leaders and top producers, full-time like industry leaders are reaching out behind the scenes because there's a lot of fear in the marketplace, right? And think about big companies in all industries that are gone. Blockbuster, right? Toys R Us. We could go on and on and on and on. And so people know big companies may not always be around. And which are the ones that are going out of business? The old school model, these brick and mortar based franchise systems. These are the ones that in all industries are getting beat up the most, right? Because they're the highest liability, biggest risk models to run through a correction. And so just to kind of give you an idea, and I'll go into eXp's background, a lot of people are coming over here right now because the fear that their current brokerages are going to either change their compensation model, meaning increase their cap and split, increase their fees, potentially go under, takes things away from them. Because what happens in a correcting marketplace is uncertainty picks up. Before the correction, you were just certain your life was going to be great forever, right? And now it's like, maybe is it, right? So there's a lack of uncertainty. And when we have lack of uncertainty, it creates stress and anxiety. And we're looking for certainty anywhere we can to have grounding on something so we can create a strategy for us to move forward in life, right? And when you're at a brokerage like this, when you see certain companies, we're not naming them, you see them all across the news, already cutting employees and changing models, this is putting a lot of fear for them. So one reason is a lot of people are coming over to eXp as a ship, as a safe haven, like a giant cruise ship to float through this coming storm on, as compared to seeing their local brick and mortar office, older school models as, like little tiny boats floating around, like little side yachts or something like that. They're going to get crushed in this. This is like what a lot of them are saying. Now, the reason why, let me give you the underlying reason. So eXp was launched out of the last correction. So our founder, Glenn Sanford, incredible individual, he was at KW. He was an online lead generation expert. He had a background in technology, spent part of his corporate working career at AOL. And so when he was jumped into real estate, he was an online lead generation pioneer. He did really well at this, and it led him to become one of the top Keller Williams production agents. Now, when he was at the company, he had split off and he had his own brokerage before eXp, is from what I understand the story. And he was struggling like other brokers, right? Revenue was going down. Agents were selling less houses. And if you're looking at your balance sheet, how do we stay in business and create a net profit? Front door, back door, right? So if less is coming out the front door, we got to close that back door, making sure our expenses are less, right? This is why I just talked about certain companies are already firing people, or letting people go, which is why people inside those companies are panicking, because that's an indication that, there could be a problem. Now, just so you guys do know, I wouldn't look at that too big a problem. You're going to see most companies lay off a little bit. It's very common. Now, if they start laying off like a lot, then it's a problem, right? But anyways, so what happened was Glenn realized that the market was correcting. Agents were leaving the industry. Agents were selling less houses. He saw his revenue was going down. So he had the idea of, what if I go cloud-based? What if I follow the trend of technology in the world right now in other industries? What if I remove the building process, which is the boat anchor that's holding my business down, that's putting me at risk right now? He said, that balance sheet, I see the biggest expense is something that nobody's using. Nobody's coming to the office anyways. So I'm paying for something that doesn't add value to my business, essentially. And he had the aha moment. What if the dollars I use to control the buildings and build equity in my personal business, I shared my business with the agents, and I took all the money that I was using to run these buildings and employees and staff and keep the buildings up and going? What if I took that in-house, got rid of those buildings, and this money here, I gave it to the agents instead? I invested in my partners and my friends, and I gave them more tools, more trainings, more resources, equity ownership in my company opportunities, residual income that can set these families financially free for years. Now we have health insurance and so many verticals, it's unbelievable, right? And so that was kind of like the first aha moment, that is, do agents need an office, or do they need income streams and opportunities? And that was the experiment that Glenn put into the industry. And here we are over a decade later. Out of a contracting marketplace, we grew into 11 states the first year. Think about that, right? Most of the industry was going backwards and contracting. eXp exploded. And over the past few years, when I joined the company, we went from 6,000 to 16,000 to 26,000 to 41 or 2,000 to like 71,000. And now we're approaching, 85,000 agents, right? So what this says is eXp is a safe haven. There's nothing recession proof, but if there would be, it'd be a business model that's created to operate through a recession with low overhead, which is essentially what our company was created for. We would not be here if it was not for the last recession, if that makes sense. So why a lot of people are moving over here right now, especially brokers and big teams and top producers, like really big industry leaders, they see this as a safer ship, is what I keep telling people, to ride through the storm on going forward than the current one they're sitting on, which they hear water trickling in from the hole, if that makes sense, is what they're telling us. And then the ability to have multiple streams of income at eXp to leverage and diversify yourself. If you build your revenue share team, but your production drops, you're still protected, right? If your revenue share team is not doing that well, but your production's high, you're still protected. So it's giving multiple opportunities there. But that's why you're going to see a big avalanche of people coming into eXp. I think you're going to see kind of like an echo effect happen, meaning there's a little lag window, but starting, like next spring, you're going to see, in my opinion, a massive flood of agents and brokers, and big ones, like agents of hundreds of brokerages at a time. I said that wrong. Brokerages of hundreds of agents at a time are going to come over in one swoop. But that's kind of like the aha moment. eXp was birthed out of recession to stay lean and clean and mean with a low overhead model. And then we came out of the last correction and had this big bull run for almost 10 years. And we became the most successful brokerage in real estate history, meaning we've grown faster than any company's ever grown. And we've created more millionaires in a shorter time than any other company that on record, right? So coming into this next correction, people study history to decide what they want to do in the future, if that makes sense. So they realize it worked good. eXp exploded from the last correction. And I think a lot of people are understanding that now and moving over here for that reason.
Right. And then something else with that as well is, the way that eXp revenue share is set up, where you can build your teams and you can build your businesses outside of your own market, so that even if we have like a drop in your market, but your team's in different state, maybe even a different country that has, no effect, the recession has no effect on them because this is something that we're dealing with at home here. But you have like one of the largest populations in a completely different country on a different continent, then you're really protected at that point.
Yeah, that's a great point that you brought up there, Kobe. And it's not even that it has to be international, right? So like that's one big opportunity eXp gives is you are able to build your business worldwide, internationally, in any country that we're in. And so for one, you have a bigger market share to grow through, so it's a bigger opportunity. But think about like what he's saying there, which is micro market, meaning local market disruptions. And here's a real case study. Like I know, and you're from Houston, right? And there's like, especially being in Houston, I know that there's a couple people specifically when, I forget, what was it, like Harvey that hit not too long ago?
Yeah, Harvey. Yep.
Yeah. And so when Harvey hit, I knew numerous people in Houston, and they weren't in our team. This is actually, believe it or not, a different team, but they were some of the biggest leaders in the company. And they had like 30 some transactions that were set in the closing pipeline, right? They were already proved, and basically they're at the closing line of these transactions with their team. And guess what happened? Here comes a hurricane, floods the entire city, shuts everything down. Okay, well, most of these houses that they were getting ready to close on are now flooded, right? They've standing water in them. What are you going to do here? So imagine if you're a local broker and you were running your current brokerage at your independent brokerage locally, meaning your ABC brokerage. What happens to your business there? A catastrophe, right? So you're going to have to try to figure out how to deal with the insurance process, the legal side of things. It was a crazy thing for people, right? But for these individuals, because they had built through the eXp business model, not a local business model, they had an international organization. So they had agents in different markets all across the country. So they had their eggs in different baskets. So they're agents in Florida, in California, in different countries, still closing transactions. So even though their local business was put on standstill for months, and literally they couldn't get those transactions through, they still had the income stream coming in from what they built, because the eXp allows us to have this global opportunity. So it can happen even locally to you as well. Now think about, what if you needed the money, and most people are running red line businesses or fine line businesses, meaning they can't not have 3 months of income coming in. Like think about the 30 transactions that they had or so, the average income coming in from those, $5,000 to $20,000 commission, how much operating capital that is to cycle back in the business. What if they needed that to pay their bills? What if they needed that to keep their, their mortgage paid in their own personal life? What if, all sorts of things. So like it literally leads to risks like that. So the ability to have your local business and do what we already do normally locally, but now add a vertical on it, meaning you can build internationally, is going to protect yourself and leverage yourself against any type of local, external or environmental event or anything that could come about. Like they could really, really actually hurt you bad. And they would have never thought that could have happened until it happened. But good thing they were at eXp and not a different brokerage, because we know what happened to others at different brokerages, right? It was a much more difficult situation for them.